It's a web tool where it's an Excel spreadsheet. It's called Google Sheets. And what we will do is we'll go to the Google Drive, create a Google Sheet over there, maybe name something as our weather station or something like that. And then our Python program running on Raspberry Pi. So here in green color that you see app mini workstation, that's the Python application. That application will collect the sensor data, which is temperature, pressure, and humidity, and send the data both onto the sensor display and to the Google spreadsheet. And it'll go on updating the spreadsheet, whatever you can define the frequency. And then we can see the view the data in the spreadsheet. Once that data comes in, we will discuss some of the things like what a typical analytics means. What are some of the things that you need to do as a part of analytics? So step one is you will need to configure Google Developers Console. Just as you can store a file, you can create some standard file and then store it over there also. But when you want to access that file programmatically, so normally what you do is you go to the browser, you authenticate yourself with your credentials, so your Google account, and then on your Google Drive, you can have files. But now your Python program will need to access those files. So there are actually two things you need to do. So when we say configure the Google developer, so Google provides a developer console where Google exposes a lot of APIs and a lot of them are free to use. You must have used of TensorFlow, which is their analytics API. What we need to do is we need to first, when you access your Google Drive, you have your credentials, which are like whatever your Google account, user ID and password. But when an application also, just like you, the application via Python app is going to access the Google Sheet on the Google Drive. So first of all, it is not easy. What you need to do is you need to first give access on the Google Drive to some APIs. And using those APIs, a Python program will first authenticate itself. Now, human authentication is user ID and password, whereas app authentication, you require a little terse string that will see how to do that. First of all, we need to access two sets of APIs, which is Google Drive APIs, Google Sheets API. So we will go and enable that APIs, and then we will create credentials on the Google site and use those credentials in a Python program to access the Google Drive and Google Sheets. First, we'll see how to configure Google Developers Console. As you can see, Google Developers Console is console.developers.google.com/project. And everything that you do, you can have multiple projects. And this URL is given in the slide. And this is the URL. You click on that, you'll go to the Google Developer Console. So my just Developer Console is just coming up. As you can see, I have got 3 projects currently. This is a list of projects that are created on Google Developers Console. Again, through my authentication. So here you see, I have logged in through my account, Google account. First time when you do, you'll have to log in using your Google account. So which is the same as your Drive account. So Google maintains the same authentication for everything that you use on Google. Google has many resources. Then you see on the left corner top, there's a navigation menu. I click on that. See, you can see multiple things there, APIs and services, billing, support, and your authentication and identity and security. So we are interested in APIs and services. So what we first saw is the dashboard. Now what we have to see is we want to go to, or rather let's go to the dashboard first. So my dashboard is coming up. See what it shows on the dashboard. The upper part of the dashboard, you can see there are some graphs which talks about how I've used the APIs. So as I told you, Google exposes some APIs which are free to use and experiment. And then in the bottom half of the dashboard, if you can see, there are 2 APIs, Google Sheets API and Google Drive API. Since I've already enabled them, so they are showing me in the list here. When you go for the first time, they won't be enabled. So what you will need to do, you will need to go to the library of all the APIs. You click on library, and in search APIs in the search box, you just say Drive. So see, it is getting the Google Drive API. So I click on Google Drive API and see it tells me all the stuff overview. The Google Drive API allows client to access with Google Drive, and there is tutorials and documentation how to use it. So we are going to show you how to do that. But if you're interested to use in multiple areas, you can go and look at more of tutorials, and there are samples also available. So as you can see on my screen, there's a manage button. Try this API and API enabled. When you do for the first time, instead of manage, it'll give you screen like this. So you search for the Drive API and you go there and see it'll give you an enable button. Since I have already selected that API, so I'm getting how to manage from there. So that's one. Before you do anything, if you can see there is a weather station project. So rather I should go to my console.com/project. So first thing you need to do is you need to create a project before you do anything on Google developer portal. Everything that you do is related to project, and all the APIs and everything are associated with a project and available to the project you create. It's just a sort of a container so that you can do multiple things and you can have a separate set of projects. As you see, there are three projects that I have here. Weather station is a project that I am currently interested in, and that's my default project, which is fine. So once you have that, I can select my weather station project. So here it will show your authentication and permissions and everything, but we are currently not interested in that. We are interested in the library part of it. After you create a project, there's a create button. You simply create a project, you give a name, and that's it. As I told you, to search for two APIs here. First we saw Drive API. Now we'll search for Sheet. So you see Google Sheets API is available. Again, you click on that, and there you see it gives the details. Overview is it reads and writes Google Sheets. Documentation and tutorials also is available. So that's the beauty of it. There are so many APIs. So you have to enable that API within your project. I have a project, I called it Weather Station. You may call it a weather station or whatever you like it. And then within that, you enable those two APIs, Drive API and the Sheets API. So when you log into a developer's console, before selecting your APIs, just make sure you create a project. And in the project, you enable your Drive API. This is the screen. And then search for the Sheets API and enable that API. Now, once you enable the two APIs, and how would you know if they are enabled for you? Simple, you should try and explore and go around this screen. In API services, you go to your dashboard. See in your dashboard, you'll see that here I am using Google Sheets and Drive API. If I change my project here, let's say go to a project called Depth Test. This was a Google Cloud other APIs I was using here. I created another project for that. And there you see, I've used many other APIs below. So many APIs you see, I'm using there. So there's BigQuery, data store, but the idea is some of them are free, some of them are paid. But Google Cloud allows you to create an account which is free for 1 year. And a lot of these services are available to you for free. For this project, I use this. So I'm just trying to show you, you can create multiple projects and choose what APIs are enabled for that project. While we do that, we selected two APIs. So in the project, you have to first tell Google or your account basically that my project so and so is going to use these two services. So you're going to enable those services. So what happens is anything related to that project will have access to those services. Otherwise, Google services are not available. First, you have to enable them. After that, you will have to give access rights to your program. Just like when you log into Google Drive, I am not able to access your project on your Google Developer Console. The reason being, I am not able to authenticate through your name. Same way for programs also. So Python application also needs to authenticate itself with Google Drive. So we have to go to our project and get the credentials for that project. And there are multiple types of credentials. So human credentials are different, application credentials are different. So for application credentials, we have to create the credentials and then copy with our program, and our program will use that credentials while it is going and accessing. So Google knows that the right application is accessing what it is supposed to. No one else will be able to access that. That's the security it maintains. So how you do the credentials? So I will first go to the slides. So after you enable the two APIs, you have to go to the credentials in the menu option you saw. And then you just have to go and say create a service account key. And once you click on that, you have to give a name to a service account and select a role. Because what happens is, just like credentials, there are, let's say, 5 people accessing a project. Everyone need not have the same access rights. Some may have full access, some may have only view access, things like that. So different type of roles allow you to define what type of access will different people or applications have. So you can even have an application which can just read the data. So that application won't be able to update the file. You can have an application which can update the data, or for our purpose to make it simple, we'll give it all rights. So we will give a project owner role. In the box, select a role, select a project owner, and then we want the credentials to be given to us in JSON format. So we'll select the radio button called JSON, as you can see on the screen, and say create. So that will download a JSON file on our laptop. So how to go about it? So you go here, say first of all, you have to verify your project is weather station. Then in the menu, you go and see APIs and services, and then dashboard, library. Library we used to review or view the library of all the APIs and enable or disable what we use. Dashboard, we see all that we have done, how the APIs are doing and what APIs are available. Credentials, go and click on that. So you'll bring the credentials page. And there you see in the service account keys, I'm highlighting that section. You see already I have one credential created here. In the checkbox, I put the checkbox. So you should be able to see that. This is because I already created one, but you won't have this. You'll have this section empty. So you'll go create credentials. When you click on that drop down, you see there is a service account key. Just click on that, and then as you have seen on the slides, you'll get this screen. You give it a name. So I have given my service account name. You can see I have given the name as MDP-WS. So my initials is MDP hyphen and WS is weather station. So this credentials I'm going to use for my weather station application. But any name you can give. So it'll download a JSON file, and how will that file look like? I'll show you. It will be available downloaded on your laptop. So let me show you how that file looks like when you open it. This is a JSON file I downloaded. So let's open it. I'll use a simple notepad editor. There are JSON editors also available, or you can use with Visual Studio Code also. There are a lot of editors. Let's open simple with Notepad, Notepad++. And there you can see. So it has got multiple fields, which looks very similar to. So when you create, it'll create the file and download it. And then this is how the file will look like. And as you know, JSON format, it is nothing but key value pairs. So type service account, project ID. In my case, it will be different. What was it? Weather station 202405. That's the ID. It could be anything. Then private key ID, then private key, which is a lot of text is there. Then client email is basically the email assigned to this service account. So it creates an internal account and just assigns this. So we are going to use that details as you go along. Just like you log in with your account, I'll have to provide this email to the application, and application will use this to authenticate itself. So this is how your JSON will look like. Now let's go to the next steps. So we did what? So we did multiple things up till now. We created a project on Google Developers Console and named it. I've named my project as Weather Station. Then in that project, I saw the dashboard. And how did I see my dashboard? Using this menu. When I click on dashboard, I'll see my dashboard. Then I went to the library option, the second option, draw in the drop down. In the library option, I selected two APIs and enabled them for this project. So Google Drive API and Google Sheets API. And then we went to credentials and created the credentials for a service account. And I called my service account as MDP-WS, and it downloaded a JSON file. So, and you can see these details in your dashboard that I have enabled the two APIs, and whatever the traffic at all these APIs are used, in the last hour there is no traffic. Maybe in the last 30 days there could be some, I don't know. No, I have not used it for last 30 days. So maybe there is no traffic. That's how you should be able to play around. I showed you another project also where I've used multiple APIs. Next step is we are now going to create a spreadsheet on the Google Drive. So let's get into the Google Drive. So let me log into my Google Drive. So I'll go to drive.google.com. It'll log me in because already I'm logged into the other application of Google. So as you can see, this is my drive. It's just coming up there. And it's on my drive. As you can see, I have a folder called files, and under that folder, there are two files. I've named it as sense het weather station, and others is any some character ABCK. And how do you create a file on the drive? When I'm on the drive, you can go and upload or download something from here, or you can create a new file. So say new, you can create a new folder. You can upload any file from your drive. You can upload a folder from your laptop, or you can create Google Doc, Google Sheets, Google Slides, everything. And this you can actually use for collaborating with other folks. There may be other things also like Google Forms, drawings, map, a lot of stuff you can create. What we need to do is you need to create Google Sheets. You say Google Sheets and you say blank spreadsheet, or from a template, you say blank spreadsheet. Create that and you have to give it a name. So it's already creating for me here. It creates and opens up in a new tab. Go to the previous tab. You can see, we first give it a name, another sheet. Just giving any name and enter. And now if you go to a drive, and there you can see another sheet already comes up now. Now what you need to do after creating that, this is a file you uploaded with your own user credentials. Just like file you can share with someone through the share command. Here you'll share with the email ID that is available in your JSON file. So as you can see, I'm not going to use this sheet because I already have one sheet. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this file we created. This is the sheet I have. So let me open up that sheet. Already it has some value. Let me go ahead and remove those values. I don't need those values. As you can see, its name is Sunset Weather Station. So this I was trying out today. So some values have been populated today earlier in the day. Same thing I was trying out and I don't want it. So let me delete that because this data we are going to create from our Python program. Now all you need to do is you'll get a totally empty sheet when you create on your own. So you need to add 4 columns. So of course, 4 names in the first row like time, temperature, humidity, and pressure. You may want to create now or you can create later on, perfectly fine. Since it's already there in my sheet, I have written it like that. So I have an empty sheet now, as you can see on the Google Drive. I also gone to the share button and see shared with one more person. And as you can see, this is the email ID. This is the email ID available in my JSON file. I'll open up the JSON file to show you again. There, this is the email ID. So my Python program actually is an application which will use this email ID. MDP-WS, as you can remember, that was the service account name I created. And then at the rate of weather station 202405, which is nothing but the project ID .iam.gserviceaccount.com. Google gives this by itself. So I'm using this email ID, which is a credential that created through Google. I mean, on developer console, you saw the credentials option. And then I went ahead and I shared. So this is exactly where I'm saying share with this thing. So what I'm effectively doing is I'm telling that only this spreadsheet share with this service account. Whoever uses this service account will be able to access this spreadsheet to do whatever it wants. We remember the project owner rights. We shared with the email. So step one of configuring Google Developer Console is done. Now we have to set up a Raspberry Pi. We have to install some libraries because your Python program is going to use Google Drive and Google Sheets. You're not going to program at a detailed level. You're not going to go to the API exposed by Google Drive and Google Sheets, but there are Python libraries available which makes it easy for you. So we're going to download those libraries. So what are those libraries? As you can see on this screen, there are 3 libraries we are going to install. And by now, I'm sure you would have experimented a little bit on Python using the videos if you have not used Python anytime. But basically, simple Python has a command called pip, which is a Python installation package manager. So all the packages that you need for Python, libraries and everything that you can manage using the pip command. So you say pip install gspread, which will go to the web and from the standard location get the gspread is the library used for accessing Google spreadsheet. Then second library that we are going to install is the OAuth2 client, and see if you can see in this command very clearly mention the version that we want to use. And that's the beauty about Python. You can even mention what version of the library because after 1.5.2 currently OAuth2 client is deprecated. So we are using in our program, since we already have a program which we are using that, we want to use that library. But then there are other ways of, and what is OAuth2 client going to do? Our OAuth2 client is an authentication model. OAuth is a very standard authentication model, and you can use OAuth. Typically, OAuth is used for authenticating your applications to any of the APIs. Again, we authenticate our application using OAuth 2. For a lot of APIs or a lot of cloud-based services, authentication is done through OAuth. We are installing that library. And then we are installing PyOpenSSL. So again, OpenSSL is communicating using SSL. And there's an OpenSSL library available. So both PyOpenSSL and OAuth library together will use to connect to the Google Drive. Once having done that, we'll use the gspread library to access the spreadsheet that we have created and store the data there. And the data will come from our Sunset because it'll be from a Python program or Raspberry Pi. So that's what we want to do on Raspberry Pi. So there are 2 Raspberry Pis, and through VNC viewer, as you can see on the screen, I got VNC viewer of 2 of Raspberry Pi. So this, the one that you're seeing now in the center, that is a Raspberry Pi which does not have a Sunset. And there I use an emulator. And this is the second Raspberry Pi. Both of them has a different background. Now the second Raspberry Pi has got a sense head, and that will send the data from sense head. So let me first go into my this Raspberry Pi. I have already installed the libraries, but I'll still run the command. If you run it again, it's not an issue. So what are the first command? It'll only tell that it is already available. Sudo pip install gspread. Sudo means you are saying Raspberry and Linux that run this command with administrative rights. And what is the command? Pip install gspread and enter. So it'll go. Of course, you should be connected to net because it is getting from some URL somewhere. There are standard libraries of Python available. What is the message it gave? Requirement already satisfied. Means it is already installed. If not, then it'll go. You'll see it'll take a minute and it'll install that. After that, the second one was sudo pip install OAuth2 client equal 1.5.2. Let me check it's 1.5.2 or not. Let me check that. What was on our slide? Yes, it is sudo pip install OAuth2 client 1.5.2. Let me go and fire that command and say enter. So basically what we are doing is we are installing the Python libraries which later Python is going to use. See, it goes and tells all the requirements are satisfied. And why it says satisfied for more than one libraries? Because OAuth2 client is dependent on other libraries. So after looking at OAuth2 client, it goes and sees what is OAuth2 client dependent on, and then tries to download all of them. It sees that all of them are available on my Raspberry Pi. And what is the third one? Sudo pip install pi open SSL. It is an SSL library. Okay, let me say enter and let's see what it says. Again, requirement already satisfied. So basically what we have done, same thing I've done in my other Raspberry Pi also, where I've installed these libraries. Let's move to the analyze the Raspberry Pi program. So let's open this Python file and I'll use Python 2 this time. So, we're using importing these libraries. Basically, these are all the libraries we are using the JSON library, the syst library, time library, datetime, and from datetime, we importing the classes date and datetime. From JSON library, we importing the dumps class. Then we are importing the syst library. Then again, JSON has been typed in twice, which is okay. But one thing, it's not needed twice. Then as you can see, this is the gspread library. This is very important for us to know. So gspread is something that uses the spreadsheet API. And as you can see, OAuth2 client, we are getting a class called signed JWT assertion credentials. So this is the class we are using from these two libraries which we imported. And then as you can see, I'm using an emulator library, sense emu, because this is my Python without senset. So first we will do with that, and then we'll go to my Raspberry Pi with senset. So both you will be able to see. Now here in this variable constant, we are giving the name of the JSON file which has the credentials. So in my case, it's weather station hyphen some characters.json. So the program that you will get, you'll have to change that and put in your file here and the spreadsheet name, whatever I given. So I give the exact and give the exact name. The case also matters. So these two fields you have to fill in and then rest should work. Now frequency I'm saying 10, you can change it. So every 10 seconds, I want it to go and upload the data. So the way Python works, this is a function in Python. So the Python program logic will start from here. And this function, which is called as login open sheet, will be called, and we'll come to that when we are at that place. So I start my Python program saying sense equals, I'm creating an instance of the sense set class. Then I'm saying clear, so it'll clear everything. And when I say clear, it clears its LEDs. On the console, I'm typing certain things, logging sensor measurements every whatever second. So you can see this is how it is string is formatted. So 0 and 1 means 0 refers to spreadsheet name and 1 refers to second. So logging sensor measurements to the spreadsheet name, whatever second which we have given up. This is going running in a while true loop. So press Control C to exit. That's the message we are giving. So worksheet variable we are saying to start with it is none. And then in the while loop, what we are doing? If worksheet is none, that means worksheet is not defined yet. Then worksheet equal to login open sheet, which is the function defined above. And we are passing in the JSON file and the spreadsheet name, as simple as that. And let's see what does this function do now. It returns actually an object called worksheet. We'll use that object to simply write. That's it. So now what does login open sheet do? It's got the auth file, which is the JSON file, and the spreadsheet. Again, in a try and except block, if there is an exception, if something goes wrong in this code, then it'll come to this part. Otherwise, it'll return the worksheet from here. So first we are saying we are creating an array, scope array. Scope equal to, you're sending the URLs, google.com/feeds, Google APIs.com/auth that slash drive. So this /auth/drive is called an endpoint. So base URL is googleapis.com, and within that the endpoint is /auth/drive. Same way here, googleapis.com is the base URL, and /auth/spreadsheets is the spreadsheets endpoint. Same way, if you look here, we are passing other endpoints also. /auth/drive, /auth/spreadsheets, and /auth. This is a standard way Google may need it. Google needs the scope. So this function requires these 4 URLs, the scope array. Then JSON class, which we created above, we said import JSON. We are importing a JSON class from the package. And in that we are saying load, we are opening the auth key file. So JSON key has got that, and credentials equal to, simply see, this is the class signed credentials. And what we are doing is we are passing the JSON key client name. The JSON key has got the complete JSON file in key value pairs. And the way JSON objects work, you give the key name, it returns the value. So when I say client email, it'll return the value of that. Private key, it'll return the key. And then the third variable it is parameter is passing its scope, which is the 4 URLs we defined here. So this is class from library, signed JWT assertion credentials, and we are just calling its constructor our application's authentication email, the private key for that, which is like our password, and then the 4 URLs, and it returns the instance of the class in credentials. Now gspread is a class that we created above from the library dot authorize, and we say credentials. So it passes the class returned by signed JWT assertion to the authorized method of the gspread class, and that returns a GC class again. So worksheet is nothing but a GC, an open method on the GC class, the gspread class, which is the instance of GC. You give the name of the spreadsheet that we want. In my case, it was Sunset Weather Station. And then I'm saying dot sheet one. So my worksheet variable will have a direct access to the sheet one, and I can simply use this worksheet class to write my onto the worksheet. So such a simple piece of code to get access to the Google spreadsheet. And as you can see, it uses authentication, and then it is able to access the spreadsheet by the name. Now coming back to our program, it's very simple now. If worksheet is none, then worksheet equal to the above method will return the worksheet object. And then simple, in a temp variable, temp is signifying temperature, TMP equal to sense. So temp equal to round temp con 1, because I don't want temperature with a lot of decimal places, only one decimal place is good. Humidity, again I'll say sense dot get humidity, and humidity round, humidity comma 1, pressure. So this 3 I'm getting from the sense class, and currently I'm using the sense class is over emulator, sense EMU. So my emulator will return these values. And then what I'm doing, I can even display what I'm getting it from the emulator, but I'll skip the display now. So I'll say print, this I'm printing on the console. And then what I'm doing, I'm creating a JSON object here, serializing a JSON object here. But this is again a function. So let's see where this function is used. So I am worksheet.append row. Now this method is going to append a row, add one row into the spreadsheet. And what I want is I want date now. So you saw JSON library had a class called dumps. You're saying dumps now, comma default JSON serial. So we are actually datetime now will return a value in an internal format, and JSON serial, this is JSON serial. It'll pass that to JSON serial. It'll format it into the ISO format, and we'll see what ISO format when we see, because datetime can have multiple formats. So we are creating these functions, creates the datetime in its ISO format, and this is where that function is called from. The first value we are passing in the row is the date time, then temperature, then humidity, then pressure. Then we are printing row to row to this spreadsheet, and then we are sleeping for frequency second. So 10 seconds we kept above. So let's run this program. So before that, let's go and check our spreadsheet. So you can see it is empty here. So as soon as I run the program, I'll come to this part. Yeah, we can see the sheet also here, and my Raspberry Pi is overlaid here. Say run module. Yes, save the source, and there. So it starts to run the program. Because I'm using the emulator, it'll start the emulator also. It has returned an error. So before the emulator was started, so the variable info was not defined. So let me run again. As you can see on the emulator, it has started scrolling the information So it'll first scroll everything on the emulator, and then it'll go to the next step after showing on the emulator, or if it's your senset, then it'll display on the senset. It's a pretty slow process because emulator it has to scroll on the LEDs, and there it has sent it. On the console, it has sent one piece of data, and as you can see on a spreadsheet also, you can see a spreadsheet, one row is created. Now it is writing a second row. Again, it will be the same values because we have not changed anything on the bars, changing the temperature, pressure, humidity. So let it send the data. So this time it will be okay. Next time it will be a little different. Now let me change the pressure, temperature values, and we'll see the third data point with different values of temperature and pressure. It is because senset or the senset emulator does not print it like a console. It scrolls and the scrolling is taking time. And this is the command. So sense.show message. And since synchronous and asynchronous mode in programming, so if we use asynchronous mode, then you can simply give the command to show message and then you can come back. Then it will be much faster. But this is done in a synchronous way. So we have to work in synchronous way. So now if I just let me comment these lines out. So I don't want to show here. So I'll comment these 3 lines and then let us see how it performs. So I commented out showing it on emulator. Now let's run and see we were here till the 7th row is filled. So 8th row onwards we'll get the new data. Exit 10:53 to 11:04. So 11 seconds, 11 seconds, 11 seconds, 11 seconds. So 1 second would be maybe the latency and execution, or because the Raspberry Pi is a little slow. If you work on your laptop, it will be much faster. So this is how you understand your programs and analyze your programs. But now, as you can see, the best part it is storing it on the Google spreadsheet, not on a local spreadsheet. But this data is still from the emulator. So we have one step still pending where we want to see from the actual senset. So this is my Raspberry Pi without senset. Now let me open up, go to the Raspberry Pi with sensor. This is my Raspberry Pi which has got senset connected. So let me go here and open up the program there. So here again opening up this thing. It's the same program, but as you can see here I've commented out the sense EMU and I'm using sense head. So now you all won't be able to see because it will be actually running on my LEDs here. But here we'll get some real values, which is in my room currently. Rest the program is exactly the same. And I have commented out sense.show message here because you can't see that, so it doesn't make sense of me displaying it here. And frequency I have taken 5 seconds just so that you know we will now be able to see the data in around 5 seconds range. So let's run. There you can see straight away it's creating new rows. First value came, second came. Now here, these are the real values. Temperature is 37, humidity is 66, and pressure is 1014. So these are real values from within the room where I am. See, the way Senset works is the Senset is right on top of Raspberry Pi. So between Senset and the chip of your Raspberry Pi, the CPU chip, there is very little distance. So when you fix that, I'm running it for last 1.5 hours now since we started the session. So all the heat from the chip is going to Senset. So the portion within my Raspberry Pi box is little heated up. And that's how the temperature where I am is around 26, 27 where I'm sitting. Raspberry Pi is just few feet away from me. Within that box, between the Senset card and the Raspberry Pi card, the chip heats up. That's why it is that way. So if I actually want to get the real temperature, then I need to connect the sensors which are a little away from the chip. So actually temperature doesn't have too much of a value when on a Senset because always the Senset is put on top of Raspberry Pi unless you have something fan to cool and all that to cool your Raspberry Pi. So this is about this stuff and you can see it's going very fast now. Every 5 seconds it is going. Actually 6 seconds. So from here if you see, if you can read this properly, 14.02 seconds to 14.08 seconds the next one. 14.8 to 14.4 is exact 6 seconds you're seeing. So that matches. So it's like my Excel file is going on filling. Now we'll go on to the next few steps. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of what analytics is about. Once you get this data, typically what analytics you can do. So we are not going to talk about end-to-end analytics, but typically what people do when they do analytics and then do much more. So we are talking about data cleaning first. So this is the type of spreadsheet we get normally. Your data has come, let's say. Now you can see there are a lot of anomalies here. Like here there is a zero. Sometimes between there could be a spurious reading. If you're first of all what this slide is talking about, that let's say your data starts coming in, if suppose your cursor or somewhere the data starts coming in, then you can go and delete the rows. So you can first of all delete the rows that are not needed and then download the spreadsheet. So this is the portion we did. And then on the Google Drive, you can right click here and simply say download. On the Google Drive, just like downloading any other file. But here, it'll ask you if you want to download as what, Excel or whatever. In fact, by default, it downloads as Excel. And then you can go ahead and open up in a local. So I'm opening up on my local Excel file now. And then you can do a lot of stuff that you want. Excel has some fantastic features to clean your data. You can go into a lot more detail within Excel. So data analytics is defined as a process which is used to examine big and small data sets with varying data properties to extract meaningful conclusions from this data set. This is what all want to know. So if you remember, I had taken the example of our boiler. Now let's say we extend this to, let us say, a factory belt. You must have seen factories. There are production happening on a belt and that belt moves on. People put the raw materials and at different location it goes on assembling itself. People will assemble different parts. Now what happens if one of the motor goes down? A belt may have nearly 100 motors or whatever. Even if one goes down, the whole belt comes to a crashing halt. And that's a disaster because production really suffers a lot. So we want to be able to predict when a motor is going to go down. How can we predict that? Now that is a branch of analytics. So motor has got parameters like vibration, temperature, maybe environment, maybe the magnetic field. So have sensors around the motor which can measure this and send it to you, just like we send from our Raspberry Pi. The motor will have those sensors and those sensors will transmit it to some nearby gateway like Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi like gateway will send it to the cloud. And you go on collecting that information periodically. And then using this data, you can try and understand that before a motor goes down, how does this parameters change? You may find that the vibration increases, inclination changes, motor's got a spindle in between. The spindle has to be exactly, can't be moving anyway. It has to be exactly vertical and exactly moving on the one point only. Now we get little here or there, temperature goes higher. So combination of these parameters perhaps can allow us to deduce that this is started malfunctioning. And typically equipments don't, they're not binary. That one moment is working perfect and the moment is totally not working. Mechanical equipment slowly go to deterioration mode. And this is the branch of analytics. So using the data like this, temperature, pressure, vibration, or whatever, there are linear regression models you can create, k-means clustering. There are a lot of different types of statistical analysis possible. That is called as analytic models. You create those models and then based on that, you derive conclusions. So you can get an indication that, okay, it is monitoring, let's say, data of all these motors. And then suddenly you can get an alert that signals from motor number so and so are such that it can conk out within, let's say, next 6 hours. It's the first signs of deterioration have come. So then, you can take precautionary measures and ensure that the production doesn't come down. Now that is the real, it's summarized way of analytics works the way I told you. Now this is a very simplistic approach which I talked about. But at the end of the day, ability to predict based on the parameters that the sensors give you. Now that will differ from different, like a motor car can have different type of parameters. There are thousands of type of things can happen with different types of equipments. They can have different type of sensors and you can predict. So that is a big field, analytics. So that is what analytics is about. Now, what are we, perhaps first of all, what you want to do is the data that is available, you want to clean it. So how do we perform analytics? So first, very simple, you go through this slide, but you can actually, once you get this data, you should run through. So first of all, if you see, the time is coming as the date and time together. We want to split it. So Excel has different ways of doing it. First of all, let's say this slide is talking about downloading it as Excel. Then this is a downloaded Excel sheet now. Now you want this to be split into date and time. So first create a column between where you will store that. So after time you create a column. So temperature column, you click on top of it and right click and say insert. So a column will be inserted before that, insert before, between the temperature and time column, a new column, blank column is created by this command. Then this is a new column which is created. Then you select the time column and then Excel has a data menu, as you can see here, where it has got an option called text to columns data. So the time column is selected. Then you go to data menu and say text to column. It'll give a dialog box like this, where you again say delimited. You can see the date and time has got a space in between. So we want to say Wherever you find it delimited by space, you create into two parts. So Excel has gone, so we are seeing the space as the delimiter here in the next slide, and then say next. As you can see, it has created two columns. Now this column we want to format as date. So you click the column, select the formatting you want in DMY or MMDDY or whatever you want. So you format it correctly. Then time again is in the next column. You format those cells. You only want the time, not the date, and the particular format. This completes the session today. Thank you. Bye bye.